Hey friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I'm going to be playing with some of the Spellbinders clubs. Now, I do get them a little bit early being on the influencer team, so don't mind my packaging. I already used the stitching die of the month in a previous project, so we're not going to do that one today. I also have used the embossing folder of the month, but I'm going to bring that back. And then I also have the small die of the month, which I will work on later this month. Today we're going to be focusing on the clear stamp and coordinating die of the month, as well as the BetterPress of the month. So I'm going to start with getting my images onto my paper. So for the BetterPress of the month, I'm going to be using my A2 porcelain cotton cardstock from Spellbinders. And I'm going to get that onto my BetterPress system with the plate. And I'm going to be using some brown ink to ink up my image to get onto my cardstock. Now the plate is larger than my A2 piece of paper, so I am using some double-sided, or not double-sided, some repositionable tape on the back of my paper where I know it won't be pressed into by the plate. So right in the center. I'm inking up these images of the birds and the leaves with the bark ink, which is from the Regal Tones mini ink set. And I'll go ahead and get the top plate onto my system and I'll run it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6, which is the black one from scrapbook.com. And I'm running that through my machine so we can get our impression, our letterpress using the BetterPress system. And you can see how pretty this design is. I love the detail, such beautiful artwork, and I really like the brown. I'm going to do some watercoloring today, and I think the brown just makes the watercolor look a little more painted. I don't know, instead of having really dark black lines. I don't know if that makes sense, but I really like the brown when it comes to watercoloring. For the sentiment part of the BetterPress plate set, I'm going to get it onto the center of my cardstock. So there's that really pretty design with no images in the middle. So I'm going to line it up as best as I can onto the white cardstock. I added more repositionable tape and I laid that right onto the system so that way the plate would stick to the magnet, and I'm making sure that my cardstock sticks to my plate so my sentiment will still be pretty much centered right in that open area in the design. For my sentiment, I'm going to do like an ombre look. So I started with teal topaz from the Tropical mini set, and then I brought in leaf from the Flower Garden mini set and created a two-tone kind of fade on the sentiment plate. I'll go ahead and run that through my machine again. I try to go slowly. I know looks like I'm going kind of fast. I do speed up my videos because I am a slower crafter than I would like to be, so these videos aren't crazy long. But that is how I got my sentiment going through a second pass through my system. Now let's move on to getting our clear stamp set stamped. I'm going to grab an A2 piece of white cardstock. This is a mixed media paper pad from scrapbook.com. It's a really nice slick white cardstock and it will be able to take watercoloring. So I'm going to stamp my images onto a piece of this white cardstock in my little MISTI. Now I want my stamp images to come off the paper because they are very large and there are coordinating dies, and the images kind of stop in corners, if that makes sense. So I need to be able to stamp off my paper. So I'm just going to use a slightly sticky mat, a low tack mat, to keep my paper in place. And then I'm inking up these two image stamp sets with VersaFine Clair in the color Pinecone. Again, I'll be watercoloring, and I really like brown. It just kind of mutes the colors. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So then I'm stamping my sentiments. I'm going to stamp thanks in brown, And then there is a really cute sentiment said that says I am tickled pink. So I just want to stamp the I am tickled in brown. So I'm using some mint tape to do some masking. And then I'm going to stamp in VersaFine Clair, this time in Charming Pink, the word pink in that sentiment. So I'll go ahead and finish that up. And then I'm going to clean off my stamps and get my desk ready to do some watercoloring. So I'm only going to show a little bit of watercoloring. Again, we would be here for a half an hour if I showed all of it, but you can kind of get the vibe and feel of how I watercolor. I used to use a water pen, but now that I am feeling much more confident with my watercolor pencils, these are the Distress watercolor pencils from Tim Holtz and Ranger. I've started just using a paintbrush. I got a couple of nice paintbrushes from when I went to Creativation in New Orleans this year. So I have been putting them to good use for watercoloring. So I put a little bit of water on my glass mat. I know it's hard to see. I really need to just get a water bowl, but it's easy to clean up on the glass mat. And I'm picking up some water from with my paintbrush and then picking up color from the watercolor pencil and coloring my image. I really like coloring on the cotton paper from scrapbook.com. It just soaks really nicely. You're able to blend on it still. It's just a really nice paper. So if you enjoy BetterPress impressions, I think watercoloring on the cotton paper is also a really great option for coloring your images in. So I'm using different shades of green. I just really wanted to create a pretty green tropical scene with all of these big leaves. And I will say, I think I colored in one of the sets of leaves as the bird's wing in the bottom right hand corner, but I think it looks like a wing, but it also could be leaves. So just color how you think this scene would look if you're going to replicate my idea. But I'm just, taking my time and coloring in the images. I'll actually be honest, this took me a couple days to do just because of time. So if you see any changes to anything, I think I did a pretty good job editing, but that I did color this background over 3 days, which is kind of sad. Just been a busy bee over here. And then I also watercolored my stamped image. I used the same greens for the leaves. I did bring in some more colors because of the different birds and the birds. Was it Birds of Paradise flower that's on there? And of course, the flamingo. So I did use different or additional watercolors when I was coloring in my clear stamp, but I just wanted to show you pretty much how I watercolor. So like I said, I just have water on my glass mat. I pick up water with my paintbrush and then pick up the watercolor from the pencil. If I need to change out the water because it gets too saturated with the color, I just wipe it up with a cloth and then spray some more water right onto my glass board. I decided to have some white parrots, or I don't know if they're cockatoos, but I think they're a type of parrot. So I really like those pretty white parrots with the yellow feathers on the top of their head. So those are what I colored these birds after. And once I was done coloring, I'm going to bring in a pretty blue to match as best as I can the blue of my sentiment and color in the background. So that's why I left my plumerias pretty white, just had some yellow details, and same with the birds because I was going to darken up my background with using blue watercolor. So I'm just going through, and instead of coloring in the images, I'm going and seeing where there is space in between my flowers and my birds and my leaves and adding in the blue. So I made sure to do my best to match the blue or the teal and green leaf paper, not paper, BetterPress inks when I added my impressions for my sentiment, and just doing my best to match those with the colors of the leaves, so and the blue background. So it just ties in the colors into the rest of the design. I don't like doing too many colors on an image or like too many different shades of one color. I just want to make sure everything kind of looks seamless when I add color to images. So again, I'm just taking my time adding in the color, and I don't like to also watercolor next to something that I just watercolored. So I do jump around to different areas of the card design if needed to make sure that I don't accidentally oversaturate part of my cardstock or blend two colors together that I didn't want to be together. Here you can see the final look of my watercolored in from our images from the clear stamp of the month, and I use the coordinating dies to cut out the two images as well as my two sentiments. And you can see here the coordinating dies just cut around the design and not around the image where it just ends on the left and bottom for the flamingo one, and then for the other one you could see on the right and bottom, and that's why I stamped them at the corners of my cardstock. So now it's time to put our cards together. Since I die cut out those images, I thought it'd be fun to add a pink background since my sentiment is thanks, I'm tickled pink. So I'm grabbing some Dahlia Color Essentials cardstock from Spellbinders, and I ran it through the embossing folder of the month. This is just the standard embossing folder. I really love this design, and I used my mister to make sure that I didn't get any tears in my cardstock when I ran that through my die cutting machine. So while that is drying, I went ahead and got my two card bases ready, and I'm just going to do a one layer, very simple card with my BetterPress of the month. So I'll add adhesive to the back of my panel for the BetterPress plate impression and just adhere that right to a card base. I think I missed my measurement a little bit on my card base, so there are some white edges, but I'm going to trim off those white edges with some large scissors off camera before I show you the end results. So my background is still drying, it's still pretty wet, so I'll go ahead and add foam adhesive behind my images while I give that background some more time to dry. It didn't quite get all the way dry and I didn't want to risk tearing it, so I'm just going to bring my heat gun in at the lowest setting and speed up that drying process. Once it is all dry, I'm going to grab my really big Scotch tape runner just because there's so much texture due to the embossing. I want to make sure that it really sticks to my card base. So then I'll go ahead and add that to the card base for my background. I'll peel off all of the release paper from the back side of my foam adhesive on my images, and I'm going to attach this first one in the bottom left-hand corner. And then I will attach the second smaller image to the bottom right-hand corner. I'll go ahead and next add my sentiments, and there is that large open space kind of in the upper right, so that's where I'm going to add my sentiment. I'll start with the word thanks, so I'll go ahead and peel off the release paper from the foam of the thanks sentiment, and then I'll repeat that process for the I am tickled pink. I still felt like my card needed something, so I'm going to grab a Pops of Color in Unicorn Tears. It's like a very pale pink, glittery Pops of Color, and I just went around and added 3 little dots of that Pops of Color, and I tapped it to give them a domed look. So here you can see a final look at my clear stamp set and coordinating die of the month, as well as the embossing folder, and then here is how I use this month's BetterPress plate of the month. I hope this brought you some inspiration today. If you're interested in the Spellbinders clubs, I will have those down below in the description of my video. Here is a close-up of both cards as well as a close-up of each individual card. Let me know which one you like the best. I like them both, but I have to say the BetterPress plate with those pretty white birds and plumerias is my favorite of the two. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!